But this talk, the topic, I think it's a good fit for BMAT, discussing with Ticketmaster. We were exchanging some ideas and so on, because at the end, we are discussing today about music and data, and this is what both companies do from different perspectives. So now I want Tom to talk about the history a bit of Ticketmaster and so on. Doris has asked me to put a bit of context of what BMAT does. I will do it briefly. So at BMAT, we monitor all the music that is being used around the world in order to produce data that is being used then to distribute royalties to the proper hands. Artists compensate in a fair way and an efficient way artists for their work. So we are more or less on the opposite side of the value chain of the music industry. Ticketmaster is in touch with the audience, with the fans, with the venues, promoters, artists. No, we are more on the back office of that. So, but both companies work with data. Without data, they wouldn't exist. No, and it's about so digitalization that has created an ecosystem of abundance of data. And we will explore today how this abundance can be shaped in order to get value for customers, the companies, and the end, the music industry. No? But before that, I would like you to introduce a bit Ticketmaster, not from a corporate side of things, but more of a brief history of its origins, how it ended up being one of the biggest, if not the biggest, ticketing company in the world.
Sure. So Ticketmaster is a very old company. It started before the internet. We have a very old ticketing system, which is still in use in the UK and in North America. It's expanded over the time, gone into many other markets, a lot of the European markets, or countries. Ticketmaster is now in. Some of those we are the market leader in the UK, in the US, and a few other European markets. In quite a few of the markets in Europe, we're a challenger brand. There is already a dominant ticketing company that we're competing with. Like I say, Ticketmaster started way back before the internet, before a lot of the sort of data gathering and use really existed. So we have changed quite a lot from back in the day when people used to stand outside the venue in long queues and wait to go and buy their tickets. Now almost everything is digital. There is lots of different touch points that customers have with us where we're able to gather different bits of data to be able to more effectively market events to them. And yeah, we're now almost in a completely digital world where your tickets are purchased online, your tickets are delivered to your phone. There is very little queuing outside of venues and getting a physical ticket anymore. Almost everything is now in this digital space, for us at Ticketmaster at least.
I have read that the company started licensing the ticketing software and selling the hardware. No?
Yeah. You have to. This is a bit before my time, but yeah, Ticketmaster started really serving venues as opposed to serving artists. Really, it was a way to help the venues sell tickets. Venues were always they all managed their own systems. They were all selling their own tickets. There wasn't much standardization, I believe, in that world, and they were all having to look after it themselves. I don't know the name of the person who started Ticketmaster, but they saw this problem and wanted to create this technology that they could sell or license to venues, make their lives easier, help people buy tickets, and obviously license it, so take a cut of that. So Ticketmaster
Ah.
would make a portion of the ticket sales.
And so it became a service company, from selling hardware to a service company, more or less.
Yeah.
And this is, I like it because this is a bit the path that BMAT followed. No? At the beginning, we developed the algorithms and we licensed the software to copyright management organizations, and they get back to us. I don't want to run the software. I want the data. I want the service. So I think that in the digitalization era, that's what the customers are expecting, a service, the added value, not
Yeah,
not the hardware.
There are still definitely cases where Ticketmaster does provide the hardware, and we literally run the box offices for events. There will be Ticketmaster staff there helping you if you have a problem. But yeah, we have shifted a lot of our businesses, like I said, on the digital kind of service side. It is marketing services. It is helping promoters know who they should be targeting with their email communications. It is knowing which fans to target, when to target them, where to target them. Is it an email? Is it an SMS? Is it any of the other marketing channels that are available, Facebook, Twitter, whatnot?
Crazy. Yeah, and before we proceed, I wanted to put some numbers on the table. Since we are talking today about data, I think that to have a glimpse on the market, what are we talking about, and to understand how data can help on this space. So the music industry is not that old. I mean, the music is very old, it's prehistoric, but the music industry is hundreds of years, I know, not much, but it has been disrupted, time after time, because of technology. So because music is quite connected to technology, so every now and then, the music industry gets disrupted and you have to reinvent. And now with the digital platforms, create huge amount of audiences, but still 75% of the revenues an artist make is because of live music, not because of the new technology platforms or whatever, so they rely on live music, 75%. Yet, according to my numbers, 40% of tickets, more or less, go unsold. So that means that there's a lot of money there that could be converted into business opportunities for the ecosystem, especially for the artists, and that's where probably data analytics in this space makes a lot of sense. To have some numbers, the live music revenue in total is $28 billion per year, and ticket sales make about 21 billion. Sorry, there are 400 major ticketing agencies globally. So Ticketmaster is the top one. Then we have 400 ticket sale companies that are quite big, but then a long tail probably of small companies. And about 100% of these ticketing companies operate in Europe. Then we have 2.3 million live music venues globally, and in Europe, 500,000, more or less. That to give you some numbers. And we have around 12 million performing artists globally, but we are expected to have 20 million in 2029. So the number of artists is growing quite fast. Then that means that if 40% of the tickets get unsold, that means that around 10 billion euros per year are not exploited. That means a lot of opportunities. Typically, live music industry has been operating with experience and gut feeling, but not that driven. So now these things are changing because we have lots of data, data points everywhere. Computation is cheap, so that means that we can model algorithms in order to get insights into it, out of it. And I wonder, how is Ticketmaster facing that opportunity and challenges? How Why is this?
Yeah, I guess that that 40% of unsold ticket number is kind of the big one. So we obviously at Ticketmaster sell huge events like Taylor Swift and whatnot, and those tickets will basically sell themselves. There isn't a huge amount of marketing you are ever going to need to do for something like that, but there is, like you say, this long tail of events, long tail of tickets that go unsold, and that is really where a lot of our effort ends up going, is trying to match up those people and those events. So we have all these unsold tickets, we have all these customers, and we know quite a lot about these customers. We know what they've previously been purchasing, we know what they browse on our website, and that basically is our job, is matching up those customers to that unsold inventory. And there's a number of different ways that we've ended up sort of trying to do this over time. One of the biggest problems that we've had at Ticketmaster in trying to shift this is that almost all of the music events on Ticketmaster get classified as rock and pop. This is this odd historical thing that if it was rock and pop, it goes on the front of the website, and every promoter wanted that, so that you end up with everybody in this one big mass. And it becoming very hard to sort of tease these apart and advertise the right kind of event to the right kind of person, because everything is just in one big genre. So we basically took that and created our own. We call them genres, but really they're based on audiences. So we're looking at this group of customers all bought artist number 1, and they also, a big group of them also bought artist number 2 and artist number 3. So we sort of build this graph of all the different artists that we have and the links between them from customers, and then sort of siphon them off into our own genres. So we know that a whole group of people are interested in this artist and this group of artists. That is now a genre that we then can use in our marketing. So instead of us using these very big, broad genres that don't really mean a lot, you have whatever it is, Bruce Springsteen and Taylor Swift and whoever, all in this one rock and pop genre that doesn't really, you may have people that like all of these things, but this doesn't really speak to people's sort of true preferences and what they really like. So we're able to take these genres that we've now created and then do much more personalized marketing to customers. We know that if we know that someone has purchased from one of these artists before, we now have a whole bunch of related artists that will be very similar, that we know that people that purchase this artist A will also want to purchase these other artists that we've got. And we found this is much more powerful than just using the sort of standard genres that we had that existed on the website. We also have sort of personal level recommendations as well. So we're able to take these, we call them calculated genres. We're able to take these genres that we've come up with, and then we can also refine them. We know what people have purchased previously. We know what they've viewed on the website. We know how they've behaved in their interactions with Ticketmaster. And from that, we can narrow it down even further to say, okay, well, we know that these genres are most likely to be of interest to you, and we know that this particular group of artists that are playing in this particular area, because we know this is either where you live or we know that you are willing to travel a certain distance. So we're able to refine that marketing down to quite a specific level. So each customer is receiving a different message. You get the same email, the design and everything looks the same, but everything that's being in that email, everything that's being marketed to you is specific to you. It is all based on how you've behaved in the past and what we know about you and what we've been able to deduce from that. Yeah, so that's kind of one of the main things that we...
By the way, you should find another name, no, for genre. So
I know, calculated genres is awful as a name. And also genre, like I said, it doesn't really... it's not really genre, it's not music-based.
It is an artist profile, perhaps?
Yeah.
But is it something static in the sense that it doesn't change depending on the user, or...
So it will... The sort of the clusters of genres are relatively static, in that it takes quite a large amount of data to be able to build those up. However, we get obviously new artists coming all the time. There are changes in, I guess, trends, different kinds of bands appear. So we have to refresh it, and every 6 months, it's not every 6 months, every year or so, there will be a refresh, basically. So we know this was what the genres looked like previously, but now we have a whole bunch of new artists, and now people's preferences have potentially changed, and trends are a bit different, so we run a sort of recalculation on top of it. So what was a genre before may not be a genre anymore. Those artists may end up sort of branching off and splitting into two separate genres, and so yeah, there will be change over time, because tastes change over time. Different artists appear, artists change their styles as well. You may have liked the artist's first album, but may not have liked the second album. Totally. So you don't go to the show, that the connections start to weaken. And that would show up in the data that we have, and then subsequently in the marketing that we do based on that.
Yeah. This reminds me a bit of the story of music consumption, no? That this hyper-personalization we are reaching at, no? Where one could buy an album before and listen through it, but then with digital platforms, we tend to listen to songs instead of albums, and we pass from a solid state, from a more liquid state, and now with the advent of AI, we move to more gas, where now music is not even the track, but chunks of it which are converted in, transformed, etc. And I wonder if in the live music experience in ticketing, this is happening as well, no? Somehow, if instead of selling a ticket for a show, we're going to a point where you had like a big audience, very rough, a big profile, and now you know how to recommend to a specific customer.
Yeah, we will recommend specific artists, specific shows to a specific person. It sounds almost like what you're getting is that we would be recommending specific songs and like building like the perfect show out of. I guess to some extent with festivals that almost is happening, I guess, in that you have. You can look at the audience of a festival one year. You can look at what they've done subsequently. Do those customers, are they all purchasing certain artists? Are they going to certain shows? And from that, you can start informing what your next year's version of the festival looks like. Like, what are those trends? What are the people interested in? Yeah, so I guess it does come a bit full circle in that, okay, we are promoting to the customer based on what we think they're going to like, but then we're also taking that information back and potentially giving it to the promoters and the clients, who can then go off and use that to try and do their bookings, to then bring the more customers in, and the cycle continues.
You could even influence on the set list, no?
Potentially.
All these people that doesn't like that specific song, don't play it.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have data that goes down to the song level. One kind of quite interesting thing that we did, sort of similar to this, there was a crossover between music and sport. So I can't remember if it was either the baseball or the football in America were bringing it over to London. They were going to do a few games in London, and they wanted to book like a halftime act. They wanted like what music should go in our halftime act of our American football game. And we were kind of tasked with looking at the data for that. And so what is the crossover between the people that we're interested in American football, and what do they do outside of that? What kind of music are they booking? What kind of artists are they interested in? So yeah, there's some level of these things feeding into each other and being able to provide the information to book artists for American football, when there's a big crossover there.
And I wonder, is this using state-of-the-art, very complex algorithms, or it's just a matter of recombining them in a smart way? Now everything is called AI, yeah?
Yeah, everything is AI. Everything we do is AI. It's a bit of a mixture. So there is still the calculated genres that we need to rename, obviously.
I can help with that, I like.
There's not really any fancy AI going on there. It is literally just looking at those relationships between what customers are buying and what artists are all linked together. I guess there's some slightly fancier stuff going on top to then actually say, okay, the boundaries between all these artists, that's where we draw the lines and where we make those genres. So there's some machine learning going on there to do all that. Whether you'd call that AI or not probably depends on whether you're trying to sell it to someone right now, I think, more than anything else. So there's that side of it, which is potentially maybe on the simpler end of things. But then we do have our own sort of in-house sort of personal recommendation engines. So things where we're not just joining together groups of artists into genres. We are literally looking at an individual person and what is all the touch point, what is all the history we have with that individual, what do we know about them, and then being able to recommend a specific show to that specific person. And that's definitely getting closer to the realm, probably of what people are calling AI currently. It's where there is more data going into that. There is more nuance, I guess, to really tease out this is the thing that this one person wants, rather than the more broad, just this group of artists is pretty similar, so we're going to put this together and market based on that.
Fantastic. Yeah, so you should have data teams working specifically on developing those algorithms, on the pipelines.
So we have a lot of different data teams at the minute in Ticketmaster. Post-COVID, it feels like there's been a real explosion in the different teams working with data that we have. Me and my team is specifically in marketing and how we use it. I call it, it's called Ticketmaster International, so basically I work for everybody outside of North America, essentially Ticketmaster for the rest of the world. So we're for marketing for them, so we have our data teams. So we're more using that data and then marketing based on it. There is a lot of other teams, mainly based in North America, who are ingesting data from all the different sources that Ticketmaster has. As you kind of think of Ticketmaster as sort of one thing that just sells tickets, and we just get a stream of data from that. Actually, the Ticketmaster ecosystem is made up of a lot of different products that we have that all generate different bits of data about different people. The actual ticketing bit and the selling of using a ticket and the selling of tickets are now quite separate things, which generate completely separate bits of information. So we now know that I know the person that comes to the website, I know the person that I sell a ticket to, but then what the person does with that ticket afterwards is now a whole new sort of stream of data that's available to us to use at Ticketmaster. So originally, you would buy tickets, you'd buy 4 tickets, we would send you the tickets, and you could do whatever you wanted with them, and at that point, we wouldn't have a clue. They could go to anyone. We now have products that allow people to share digital tickets. So you can buy your 4 tickets, we send you those digital tickets to your app or your phone. We then give you the ability to share those digital tickets out to your friends or whoever you're going with. They can then store them in their app on their phone. And that connection is then something that we're able to use in how we market as well, because now I don't just know that you bought 4 tickets, I know that you bought them, and I potentially know who the 3 other people are that went with you. And they may never have purchased this kind of artist with Ticketmaster before, but now, providing they created a Ticketmaster account and they gave us the permission to use their data, we now have that. We now know that they went to that show. We know that they are potentially a friend of yours. We can make that connection. You share the ticket to them. And there's the potential there to start building up these bigger graphs of, okay, we know certain people. We know they're connected to other people. Maybe we don't know much about this person's preferences, but we know that they got a ticket sent to them by this original person, and he does have a big booking history. So there's the potential there to use person A's booking history to then inform how we market to person B. We might not have a huge amount of information about them, but we do on the person that sent them a ticket. And you infer that they are friends and potentially have similar interests, then it opens up a whole extra sort of area that we're able to market to now that we previously had no information on at all, no view on.
So basically, you're using your consumption data in order to recommend, no? Are you using other sources, third-party data for the recommender?
Not really. So all of our recommendations are basically based on how you have interacted with Ticketmaster, what you've purchased, what you've viewed on the site, all those interactions. We, in Ticketmaster International, did used to use kind of personal demographic data. So we would work with a partner who would provide us things like income, gender, age, life stage, these kind of things that sort of built a picture of what the actual person was like. We haven't used those in international for quite a while now. One of the things that we found that made it almost impossible to use it was data privacy and the advent of GDPR, when previously these companies would offer sort of a one-to-one match between a customer and their sort of personal data. Now, a lot of them aren't able to do that. They can't identify a person and tell you their age, tell you their income, tell you their gender. So they've changed their practices, and now they give you this kind of aggregate based on what they know about a group of people similar. We found that that didn't work. We would do tests where we had these very specific audiences, and we knew that they would look different. There was, like a festival, a theatre show, different kind of music acts that we knew would have different audiences, and we knew that from our past data we could see that they had very clear different audiences. And then, with the shift to this more general not being able to do a personal identification on it, all these audiences just sort of merged into one. Everybody looks the same when we had this new product that we got. So they basically became unusable, really. Everyone looks the same. You can't really use that for marketing. There is no sorry, I can't speak English either. You can't see the different audiences in the data that we got anymore. So we stopped using that data. Even before that, when we did use this sort of personal demographic data within the models that we had, it was nowhere near as powerful as the actual behavior that a customer has with Ticketmaster is the most predictive thing of their future behavior. What they've purchased, what kind of venues they go to, how far they will travel, what they browse on the website, how often they browse on the website. All these things are way more predictive than if you are male or if you are female or if you are younger or older, because generally audiences to artists are quite diverse, and just basing it off your demographics isn't really, we found it did not work as well, anywhere near as well.
Mm-hmm. And two things here, no? Then, do you find a difference between the recommendations you can provide in the US, where there's no such a limitation in the regulation of personal data, for example, compared to what you can offer in Europe?
So I don't know exactly what they offer in the US and how the laws work over there, but I do know their recommendation engine is based on Ticketmaster behavior. They don't involve the demographics in there. Okay. Say we found that the purchase behavior was the most powerful. Where we do end up using more of the sort of the demographic data in the US is for kind of artist profiles. It's when we have a client or an artist or a promoter who is interested in who's gone to my show, what do they look like. Mm-hmm. It's there where we're able to offer that information to them. And potentially it informs their marketing. If they're able to see certain demographics or people that are interested in certain things, then they can decide to change their marketing based on that. However, from a Ticketmaster point, as using Ticketmaster International, that demographic data we very rarely use for marketing, as we found it just wasn't performative.
I see very clearly the benefits of the GDPR and personal data protection and so on. But I wonder also if you wanted to recommend based on diversity, gender equality, for example, you would need some kind of personal data in order to tune the recommender. So badly used, it's very dangerous, but it could also had some good use.
Potentially. I think it's a tough question, and maybe a double-edged sword, because there are places where you don't want to collect too much personal information about someone. You can't, as a ticketing company, really justify collecting all that personal information about somebody, because why does a ticketing company need to know whatever? It could be your race, ethnicity, religion. These things you can't justify that really as a ticketing company, why generally you would need those things. I can see potentially some benefits in if you know there are certain genres which have a big crossover with certain demographics and certain groups, but equally those genres aren't only going to appeal to those people. You're going to end up pigeonholing. I guess you're going down a very narrow route of we're
Yeah.
only going to recommend this this specific type of music to this specific group of people, and we're not going to broaden that. And that's a bit too restrictive, I guess. And then, yes, we want to recommend things that we think people are going to be interested in, but you do also have to put new things in front of people. You need to broaden this out a bit as well. I worry that if we went too narrow, that would have a negative impact.
I wonder, if your algorithms have this ethical component into account, or it's just designed for optimizing revenue?
Yes, I mean, they are designed to sell tickets, and they wouldn't have, I guess, any other a goal. And I think there is the chance that they can end up picking up some of these, some of your demographics, even if they're not present in the model. If there are certain acts that do have an audience that matches a certain demographic, it is possible that the model starts to learn that link, even if it's not really there, and you will wind up getting recommended similar events to people that potentially are of the same religion, race to you, or whatever, even if those data points aren't there. It is possible.
And I was thinking that your company, as one of the top ticketing companies, has a privileged position in the sense that you have information from lots of events, no? But until which point, who knows better their audience, the promoter of a specific event, or you as a ticketing as a ticketing company?
I've got to say us, surely. I think it depends. I think there are definitely... A promoter is going to know their world very well, I would imagine. The promoter of a festival is the one booking the acts. They're the one that has to get the audience in. And the more they're going to be closer to the event. They're going to have more of a hands-on knowledge of the events. I think the benefit that we have at Ticketmaster is that I don't just have the data for your festival, I have the data for all of the festivals, potentially in a country. And we're able to maybe take a step back and, okay, you know what's going on in your world, but maybe I'm able to help you, tell you what your fans are doing outside of your world. Maybe I can tell you there's a big crossover between your festival and a certain other kind of music that maybe you haven't been booking, and maybe there's a potential there for us to be able to benefit the promoter or whoever it is. So, we can benefit each other. I think.
There's some good relationship there where you can bring some insights that they are missing and vice versa, no? Because I was thinking, at the end, selling tickets, so the action of selling a ticket is a commodity per se, no? But here, all the layers of data analytics is what really brings a value for your customers, right? Do you offer these services to the promoters, or?
Yeah, so generally we work with whoever is our event partner, which is basically whoever has brought the tickets to Ticketmaster, whether that's an artist, promoter, the venue directly. It will be one of these people generally ends up being our sort of event partner who we will work with. And yes, we'll work with them. If it's a venue, maybe we'll work with them to either bring more people into the events that they've currently got on, or maybe we can offer them, what else is happening in your kind of area? Is there certain artists or certain kinds of events maybe that would be beneficial to have in your venue that we can provide that information for too? So, we will happily work with venues, promoters, artists, to try and help sell them tickets, because them selling tickets is good for them selling tickets is good for us. So anything we can do to boost their business, we will do.
Yeah.
within reason, I guess.
At the end, this brings up to the original question of the selling these untapped 40% of unsold tickets somehow, helping relive the music scene. And yeah, but this is top of mind application of data analytics. But are there other use cases where you are using data analytics on your company, not just to optimize revenue for promoters, etc.?
I mean, there is data used all over the company. Outside of my marketing world, there is data used to try and stop bots and the kind of activity of trying to scrape up all the tickets or buy up all those tickets before the general public get their hands on them. So there's a whole load of analysis and data science work going on there to do that side of it. There is probably lots more too that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, I was thinking, fraud detection, for counterfeit tickets.
Yeah, we have sort of fraud detection for. It kind of goes almost back to the bot side of it. We have detection on if you've been using, if tickets are bought with sort of fraudulent details. If we're able to identify someone that is either likely to resell the tickets or I can't speak to clearly. I don't know this world too well, to be honest, to go into it in too much detail.
Oh, I'm sure it has a place there. All the data that you generate that can help on other areas. You were mentioning COVID before, and I was wondering. All of a sudden, there was a rush in understanding the audiences and everything and reinventing the experience. How is this now? What happened?
So obviously all through COVID was a pretty terrible time for the entire live events industry. Ticketmaster and Live Nation, who owns Ticketmaster, was trying to find different ways that we could still basically run events, that we could still sell tickets during that time. Virtual events became a thing, or more of a thing. They did exist partially before, but we started to push those a lot more, basically where you would buy a ticket to watch a show on your TV. During that time as well, us in the sort of insight department, we did a lot of work trying to understand how fans felt about returning to live events, what kind of things would make them more comfortable to return. So was it making sure everybody at a venue was vaccinated? Was it making sure that your the seats in your arena had space around them, so you were kind of isolated a bit from everyone else? So we would run these surveys. We would find that the people would say that all of these things they were quite interested in. They wanted everyone to be vaccinated. They wanted sort of antiseptic wipes to clean everything with. All these things scored very highly in what people said that they wanted when sort of live events came back. But then almost all of that was nearly disregarded. It was almost live events came back and they went back to being sold out almost instantly. Everyone forgot about all of the precautions that they were interested in a few months before. So we did all this work that kind of came to nothing, but we're in this position where we had to try and understand what audiences or what customers, live event fans were interested, what they were thinking at the time. And there was kind of the pressure from people wanting to put on events. They wanted to know what customers were thinking. They wanted to know what would make them comfortable. So there was a lot of work going on at that time to try and what was the world going to be like after COVID? How were live events going to come back? And it turned out that they just came back. Yeah. All at once, very fast, and people wanted to buy tickets a lot.
Besides this main learning, that everyone wanted to come back to business as usual, is there any learning after all these investigations or this research in the COVID?
I mean, a bit. I mean, it's going back to kind of almost the basics of research, in that when you carry out research and you survey people, you get much better answers if you ask them what behavior they have done, rather than asking them what you think you're going to do in the future. What people think they're going to do in the future is rarely how they actually behave. which is what we do with all the rest of our surveys, all the rest of our research is all asking about how you have behaved in the past and basing our decisions on that. However, COVID was a completely new experience, and we couldn't really ask people what they did after the last time they were in a pandemic and in lockdowns.
Yeah, and online concerts were there to stay, right? Where they are now.
There are potentially some, but they are definitely not top of our agenda.
Are you exploring these kind of, at least hybrid event or VR, AR? So how do you imagine Ticketmaster in 10 years? Is this something that we have to have a look at it, or just?
I think from kind of this experience with COVID and just generally my experience with live events is that people love live events. People want to be in a building full of other people like them, listening to the music that they love. And I don't think that is going away. I don't think you're going to change that. I think you might end up with sort of bigger and crazier experiences on top of it. So there's the, I can't remember the name of the Sphere in Las Vegas, where you get the giant screens and the big show that you can kind of put on in there. So kind of taking things a bit further in that direction. There's all the extras that go on around events in terms of VIP experiences and meeting artists and going into sound checks and all of that. That is an ever-growing sort of industry, but
because now people has turned their heads to AI, and that's what you read everywhere. But not long ago, it was all about metaverse, no? Still, there are gaming platforms like Fortnite that offer concert and so on. And how do you see ticketing companies in that space? Are they playing any role in there?
I think ticketing companies do still have a role in that space. I mean, during the pandemic, when there were all these virtual events that were happening, it was us that was selling the tickets for a lot of those. A lot of the smaller kind of acts at the time. So outside of the main Ticketmaster platform, we have smaller platforms that allow artists and venues to almost kind of self-serve ticketing. They don't have a big relationship with Ticketmaster, but they can list their own events. They can sell, they do the setup, they do the selling of the tickets. And those kind of platforms, Universe is the one that we have, was used a lot at that time by these kind of smaller individual people that could set up their own things for them to try and do these online events, try and keep making money, keep having sort of interaction, or keep having that connection to their audiences, I guess, at the time when they weren't able to go out and do live performances.
And finally, because I want to open the questions for the audience, can you tell us what are the main innovations on the ticketing industry that are coming now? We were talking about these barcodes that refresh. Can you talk about this?
So the refreshing barcodes are, they're maybe not the most exciting topic in the world, but they solve a problem that existed where you could have ticket resellers that would resell the same ticket however many times. If it was a printed off PDF with a static barcode, and they could sell that hundreds of times, and you would get these people that would show up to the venue, and the first person would get in, and then everybody else is stuck. They don't get anything. They get turned away. So now there is a lot more control from the Ticketmaster side about the delivery of that ticket, and it living within the Ticketmaster app. It has a barcode that updates, so you're not able to take this sort of static picture of it and send it on. That will just never work. It has to live within the app where it is secure and refreshing. And yeah, the whole point of that was to try and stop this sort of reselling, the reselling of tickets, but this sharing of the same barcode out, and people having this terrible experience of getting to venues and not being able to get into the event, which reflects badly on us because they have a ticket that says Ticketmaster on it, and they think that this is our fault. It reflects badly on the venue because they have to turn away people, and they're having a terrible experience at that point. So yeah, that was a great kind of fairly small innovation, really. Just have a barcode that refreshes, that we have more control over, and it is able to get rid of a lot of that sort of fraud that was going on within those with those tickets. in terms of other innovation, we're all the sort of the data platform that we have at Ticketmaster has changed quite a lot recently. We've adopted Databricks as our kind of main data platform, and now we have, or at least we're getting towards having all of the different data from all the different systems that Ticketmaster has, all flowing into Databricks, which allows sort of all of the teams now to make use of this data that perhaps they didn't have access to before. So we talked about some maybe the fraud prevention and these teams. Now the data that they're using, which perhaps was often a silo in their own world that no one else had access to before, now lives in the same platform as all our marketing data and all the other data that we gather, which potentially allows us in the future to do more work where we have access to more of this data. We can work across teams a bit more. We can see, okay, well, the fraud department have maybe identified that there's all these behaviors that look very suspicious, and maybe we on the marketing side should potentially be sort of filtering out customers that we know have sort of shown those behaviors in the past, and maybe not marketing to them and making sure that they're not able to even sort of get into the queue for tickets rather than filtering them out afterwards. So that move to Databricks is probably one of the biggest innovations that we have recently, and just this central pool of all the data
silos,
that we have. But yeah, the breaking of silos, having everything in one pool that everybody can access, that is well documented, so you know what all these different things are, which is potentially one of the biggest problems with this kind of move. But it's an exciting time where we have access to much more data than we would have had previously, and much more people throughout the business have access to the data as well. So it's not just the silos of data, it's the silos of people breaking that down. So it's not just these people know a certain thing and these people know something else. Now everybody has access to the same data, the same insight, and it will be much more easy to share it across the business.
Fantastic. And is there any option for companies in the ecosystem of the music industry to use somehow the data you own for a better use on other? I'm thinking of applications that want to recommend promoters to artists, or using music usage data from our own systems that could fit in your platform. So in the sense of breaking silos, but not only inside of the company, but on a broader sense?
Potentially. I know we have, and this isn't exactly my area of expertise, but I know we have sort of APIs now, then we're more open towards our own clients and sharing more of the data back and forwards with them. In terms of working with companies, it'd be completely separate for them to build their own recommendation things on, like potentially. I'm sure there's a conversation with someone about how that works and releasing data and who's making money from it and how this legally works, which is kind of outside of my world. But there are definitely more partnerships with different companies outside of Ticketmaster that are sort of happening. To the extent of how much data is being shared and what's being built on top of them, I'm not entirely sure, but the kind of platform and the APIs to make more of that possible is starting to be there.
Nice. I think it's time to open the mic for the audience. If anyone wants to put a question.
Thank you. My name is Matias Muñoz. I'm a doctor in cultural economics, so this topic is quite fascinating and appealing to me. Basically, my question was for you, Tom, in relation to what the kind of data that you mentioned that you have, like, let's say, you said booking history, the customer's profile, how artist A is related to artist B, for example. And the initial percentage of this 40% of seats that are empty or tickets that aren't sold. So perhaps, I mean, I know that probably it's a private company, so the KPI is probably the revenues and not actually the number of tickets, but revenues. So have you explored the idea of, for example, I know, like a membership plan or something like that, connecting promoters of artist A with artist B, which are probably more or less the same, if not the same?
Yes.
Actually.
I was at a meeting yesterday about membership schemes. This whole idea of loyalty schemes has been talked about quite a lot. It tends to be something that gets quite popular yeah, it kind of gets popular, and then we had never really worked out the best way to do it, and the idea kind of dies down and then gets resurrected again a little while later. So yeah, at present we don't have any membership schemes. There is this idea, we're just trying to work out what is best. Is a Ticketmaster membership scheme something that is useful for a fan? Or do fans have more of a connection to a particular venue or a particular promoter, perhaps? And maybe it's a membership scheme on that level that we can help facilitate. It's not necessarily a membership with us, but we can help with the data that we have and the communication with the fan. So maybe it's, you pay to be a member of a certain venue, or perhaps you're buying a certain amount of tickets at that venue, and that gives you some sort of benefit. If you've bought X amount of tickets in a year, then you get access to a special event, or you get tickets to another event at that venue for free, things like that. So it is something that gets talked about quite a lot. Like I say, it was being talked about yesterday. But we've never really fully kind of rolled anything out on a membership, as a full membership scheme.
Any other question? Here.
Hi, thank you very much for this presentation. I'm Sumaya. I'm an editor at Revista Contracultural. I wanted to ask you, also as a user, or from the audience, like buy tickets. How do you think, or what do you think are the tendencies, the patterns, or what you see, innovation-wise, to make the user experience better? Because probably very aware it's your job, that recently with big tours like Taylor Swift or Karol G or this artist, it has been quite terrible for the users, for the end users, and it's a bit surprising when we don't know anything about the topic. It's a bit surprising to leave that from the other side. So just wondering. Yeah.
So on the kind of those sort of big on sales where there's huge amounts of demand, all these people trying to get a relatively small number of tickets at the same time. There's been a few different ideas of how to try and solve those, and we have done research on this kind of these high demand on sales and trying to understand how people would most like them to happen. The problem that we've had with that research, we've done sort of focus groups, we have talk to them. We just get very conflicting opinions. Some people think, so we had some proposals where it's like you get in a line and the person at the front of the line gets the tickets and everyone waits in a big long queue, which is basically how ticketing has always worked. And people find that very frustrating because there is never enough tickets for the people in the line for something like a Taylor Swift. But then all of the options that we have for trying to make that experience better or potentially change how that line works, there was never any consensus on those. There was always one group that found one suggestion extremely unfair and felt that it didn't work for them, and there was other people that really liked that suggestion. So the things that were looked at were in terms of, there was a company that we worked with quite a while ago on an older Taylor Swift on sale, where you could interact with them and almost prove how much of a fan you were of Taylor Swift. And this company's sort of model was that the more you interact, the more that you prove that you're a fan, the further towards the front of the queue you went. And obviously you kind of put that into a focus group. Lots of people think that that's extremely unfair because there are plenty of people that maybe is equally a bigger fan or feel that they should get tickets equally, who just don't have the time to sit around signing up to all the mailing lists and buying the jumper and the T-shirt and the 7 CDs and whatever else. So yeah, for the high demand on sales, there was a number of things like that. There's also sort of the other scale of that is just randomization, getting people to sign up beforehand, So we know generally what the scale of that on sale is going to be. Trying to process that data first as well to try and identify if anybody in there is likely to be a bad actor, someone that's just going to buy a bunch of tickets to try and resell them, basically. So yeah, can we get people to sign up? Can we somehow filter that data basically just to the people that we think are actually going to attend an event? And then at the end, either put them in the order they signed up or randomize them and put them in. But even that, people didn't like that plan either. They didn't like the idea of being randomized. They liked the idea of, well, I was here first, I should get tickets first. That doesn't really work when it's a website and everyone goes on there at the same time and it's like the milliseconds in it. So yes, there has been work into that to try and come up with a better process. There is still work ongoing to try and make that a better process. But the biggest problem that we've faced so far is really that there is very little agreement from the fans that we speak to on what is the best process for that, when there is just, we're always going to have these situations where a Taylor Swift or a Beyonce or whoever else goes on sale, where we have a huge amount of people that want to buy tickets and really quite a small amount of tickets in comparison to that. And there are always going to be people that are disappointed with the outcome of however we choose to manage that. On kind of the other side of things that aren't as high demand, so not like a big Taylor Swift on sale, but potentially buying music in a smaller club venue, and also buying theatre tickets or maybe buying for some sort of family event. We've done quite a bit of research into how people want to buy tickets for those different kinds of events, with the sort of idea potentially being that they do end up being different experiences. You don't come to Ticketmaster and buy a concert in exactly the same way as you buy a family event. It's potentially people want to do those in different ways. There might be someone that wants to buy family, maybe they know they want to take their kids somewhere, but they don't exactly know what they want. So the kind of options or the filters and how we present that information, maybe that journey is different to how we sell a concert, where maybe someone is more likely to just know what they want and to come in and search for it and buy. So it's another area where there's been quite a bit of research done to potentially change what those journeys look like based on the kind of event that we're selling.
Well, it seems that the best user experience is more concerts from Taylor Swift or more Taylor Swifts.
Yeah, I mean, the best user experience is that Taylor Swift does an ABBA and just does a virtual hologram version of herself that plays every single night in every city in the world, and then we'd be fine.
At the same time, yeah. Scarcity, I guess, no? Is the problem is the scarcity.
Yeah, there's the flip side of that is if Taylor Swift played every single night everywhere, would there still be the same demand?
No, of course. Yeah. And then maybe your company plays a role in setting up expectations, no? Creating the hype, or not really?
I would say for smaller events, we essentially try to market them and build them up. I mean, for something like Taylor Swift, obviously, she will still be included in marketing. She will still be, that her image will be on the website for you to click on and buy tickets, so that it will be visible. But something like Taylor Swift obviously does not need the same marketing effort as that long tail that we talked about. The 40% of unsold tickets is where more of the effort really needs to go to.
And then, do you apply the same strategy, same recommendation strategies for well-known artists than for this long tail that you want to build up momentum for them?
So currently, yes, they will sort of sit in the recommendation engine in the same way. Although we've been doing some testing recently and did find something that's quite interesting kind of along those lines, and that the artists that get recommended the most tend to have the worst conversion rate, because they are these bigger artists that sort of generate more interest. We're able to link that artist to more people, so they appear in their recommendations more. But really, that recommendation isn't as strong as something to one of these smaller artists, where we see a much better conversion rate when we recommend those. So really, there should be some changes in how we do recommend those bigger artists that just have more selling power than the smaller ones that do tend to convert better. So there's definitely something in that.
Any other question? Yeah, there.
I have a question regarding with all the data that you possess. Are you able to predict how much tickets will you sell? Because if that's possible, why is the 40% of tickets not being sold? That's normally on small or medium avenues, right? Or
Yeah, so from a Ticketmaster perspective, we would generally only try and predict really how many tickets we're going to sell for the bigger events rather than the smaller events. Usually not because we're wanting to know how many tickets we're going to sell, but because we're more interested in the demand and how that is going to affect other parts of the site. And are we going to have issues with too many people coming and crashing the site? There are instances when we work in what we call an allocation market, where maybe we only have a certain section of the tickets. We don't sell all of the tickets for a certain event, where we would look at how much demand we're seeing for that particular event or artist, and then we can go to the promoter or whoever we're working with and say, well, we know that there is this much demand that we have on our own platform, but you've only given us X amount of tickets. So we can use that data there to try and say, we know we can sell more. You should give us more of the allocation for this event because we will do a better job at selling those tickets. But in terms of that long tail, it's not necessarily... I mean, yeah, we could look at it and sort of predict how many of those tickets we're going to sell, but those tickets are still going to need selling to. And it's not us going out and getting those tickets all the time. It's we are going to work with those venues, and those venues have those events that are putting them on, and those tickets are just there that are harder to sell, that we need to put more effort in, I guess, in the marketing side to try and sell them.
And as far as I understand, is the customer, the promoter that sets the price for the concert, no? Are you helping them modeling the pricing?
We do have teams that look at pricing against outside of my world, but yes, we do have pricing teams that will look at demand and other events and yeah, all that data behind what people are buying and what they're paying. And we'll offer recommendations to the client, whoever it is we're working with. But that the actual pricing decision, who prices the tickets, is always the client. It's not Ticketmaster.
Yep. What other questions do you have?
I would
do you
like,
have one?
me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I would like to know, is there any like regional differences in buyer behavior or towards artists? Is there anything, because you said you were responsible for everything outside North America. So is there anything, interesting there in the data?
Generally, we see markets behave relatively similar in terms of when they buy tickets and how they buy tickets. One of the things that's potentially most interesting about how they behave differently, we have this tool that we built called Affinity, and it's basically you like this artist, so we think you'll like these other artists. And we had that model for the UK, and then we tried to look at it in other markets, and it ends up looking really different. What we think you will also like if you're in the UK looks very different if you're in Spain or you're in France. So the way people buy tickets looks quite similar, but potentially the things that they're interested in and those links between different genres and different artists does look quite different for different countries. So then, which makes things a little tricky, because it means that when we do something, we have to do it individually for every country rather than just being able to do sort of one for everything. But yeah, that's probably where we see the most difference between different countries.
Any other question? Sure. Well, it's almost time, right?
You got 10 minutes before you got to leave, so get
Yeah,
questions in now.
So Gonzalo, maybe you want to make like closing remarks or last question for Tom, and and then we're going to close. We have Pika Pika and some drinks there, so
Fantastic.
we can have some networking session later. Yeah, and you have to run, so thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
So if there is a question for Gonzalo, do it now, because he has to go at 8 sharp.
Yeah, we can do it well, no? Picking up some, yeah, while having a drink. But yeah, no, just to close the session, I think it was quite interesting. People tend to know just what's in front of the screen of their computer when buying a ticket, but nothing that is happening on the backstage, no? We have the first-hand experiences, frustrations, success when we buy a ticket, all the anxiety when we go to a concert and we are running out of battery, but we don't have the paper, but no? And, but yeah, at the end, all these experiences are held by the data that you process on a daily basis. And that's pretty much the story of all modern companies nowadays, no? That they make use of the data that users generate to provide a better service.
I think so. I like working in ticketing and live events because there is this whole huge data world where some ends of it become quite murky and quite dark, and there's places where there's data that I'm not sure I'd want to be using and things I'd want to be sort of selling. Whereas I'm using this data to try and help you get Beyonce tickets or something.
Exactly.
I feel like it's a relatively
Fantastic.
it's a relatively positive use of all this data that we have.
And you said to me that you studied psychology, so and working on data and user, no, this makes a lot of sense. So
Exactly. Yeah, I've always been interested in how people behave, why they do the things they do. So yeah,
So that's fantastic.
It's worked.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thanks.